diglossia? As an introduction, just this. Do you know what is the diglossia country? Iraq is a diglossia country. Iraq, for example, Saudi Arabia, I don't know, Lebanon, are the countries that are diglossia. Varieties, okay, which kind of varieties? For example, Iran is also, Iran have also different varieties of languages, but it's not diglossia country. Okay, diglossic country is different from bilingual country, okay? Bilingual country, for example, Canada is a bilingual country, it's a bilingual community because two languages are, let's say, standard. They have two standard language, that is English and French. They have two standard language that they use it equally in different situations. In a school, they have both they use both languages, and for example at work they use both languages. But diglossia are countries that use a lower prestigious language as the language of everyday, as their ordinary language, and their higher prestigious language, they use it in limited situations. Okay, for example, you as the Iraqi people use Iraqi Arabic. Okay, Iraqi Arabic in your every situation. For example, as the ordinary usage, but you use classic Arabic in just formal situation. You don't use classic Arabic at home. Okay, you don't use it. You use Iraqi Arabic, that is different from Lebanese Arabic. Okay, so these countries we call it diglossia country. That's right, we don't use standard Arabic. Yes. Let me call it classic Arabic, okay, or Quranic Arabic, or Quranic Arabic, that is Qurani. Okay, Arabic that is Qurani, and we call it classic Arabic. Okay, did you get the diglossia countries? Did you get? Okay, this was just an introduction. Okay, and okay, as you can see in this different content, we will talk about speech communities. We will talk about language variation, for example, regional variation. Okay, in these parts, for example, I will ask you to search for different regional variation in your community, for example, in your province or in your country. For example, as your friend Mr. Osam said, there are some provinces in Iraq that are bilingual. For example, I think that Erbil is a bilingual province, yes? Am I correct? Erbil is bilingual province. That's both Kurdish and Arabic. They use both Kurdish and Arabic. Okay. In Iran, we also have different provinces that are bilingual. For example, Sistan and Baluchistan. For example, Kurdistan. For example, Khuzestan. These are the provinces with two languages. We call it bilingual provinces. Okay, so I will ask you to search for different regional variation in your country. Okay, so different topics that we continue with different topics. For example, words and culture. For example, kinship terms, the Sapir-Whorf theory, Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, ethnographies, solidarity and politeness, for example, two distinction, and the other topics that we will cover. I hope that we will cover all these topics in this term with the help of you yourself, okay? Because some sessions I need your help to present some parts. Okay, and no question up to now. If no question, we can start with the next subject. Okay, I'm the teacher, Mr. Osam. So it's my duty to help you. Miss Sohad, I will tell you, okay? I will tell you, for example, this session, I need the presentation of one of you from this page to that page, okay? I will tell you. Yes, from this book. Okay? My explanation is very fast. Okay, I will try to slow my speed. Okay, we start with the I don't mean your English, so what you mean? Given ideas? What you mean by giving ideas? Okay, Mr. Osam, the time of the class is limited, and I have to express my opinion and express the ideas very fast. I have to, but I will try to express slowly. Okay. Okay, I will. Let me record it. Okay, please remind me. Okay, each session, please remind me to record the session. Okay, because I forgot. Okay, I will. I record the meeting, Mr. Osam, and you can hear the records again and again and again many times. And you can write any time that you like. Okay, little slow. Okay, of course. So let me share. Uh, Mr. Ahmad, you said we need to know the topic to work on it. Okay, Mr. Ahmad, I will tell you each session that next session I need the help of some presenters. Okay, I will tell you about the topic. Don't worry about it. Like last year, that for example, I uploaded some articles and asked you, okay, I need some volunteers to present these articles. So this term is the same as the previous session, previous term. So each session I will tell you about the next session, okay? That and you have 1 week. You have the time of 1 week, and you can prepare yourself, and do the presentation. Okay, let me share the first. Okay, can you see the screen? Chapter 2, languages, dialects and varieties. Okay, we start. Okay, according to what Mr. Osam said, I speak slowly. In this part, we start from chapter 2, because chapter 1 is just the introduction. That's introduction of the whole book, that I will give you some ideas about sociolinguistics. And I told you that what we will cover in this term, we will cover different topics, for example, language, dialect, varieties. We will cover the topics such as diglossia, bilingualism, Pidgin, Creole, and different topics, okay? So in the introduction, talk about these ideas. So here we start from chapter 2, that the title is Languages, Dialects and Varieties. Here we want to talk about different ideas about what is language, what is dialect, and what is the difference between language and dialect. Do you have any idea about what is language and what is the dialect? Or let me propose my question in another way. What is the difference between language and dialect? Can you answer me? Have you ever heard about the difference between dialect and language? Okay, let me, Miss Sohat. Miss Sohat, your microphone is active. You can.
Good evening, Doctor. Language can be used to refer either to a single linguistic norm or to a group of related norms. And dialect, do you mean dialect and language or dialect or variety?
No, dialect and language.
Dialect and language. Dialect refers to one of these norms. We mean a group of people may speak the language, the same language, but differently in a different spot and different situation.
Yes. And you said the dialect?
Yes, I mean the dialect. The concept of language is wider than the concept of a dialect.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sohat. And let's. Okay, and others, what is your opinion about the concept of language and dialect? Okay, no one? About the concept of language and dialect. What is language? To which variety we call language, and to which? Miss Shima. Yes, Miss Shima, you can speak. Miss Shima, your microphone is active. Miss Shima, you can't hear me? Your microphone is active. Okay, you change. Okay, I activate your microphone. You can speak. Miss Shima, can you hear me? Okay, I think that your microphone is not something wrong with your microphone, because I cannot hear you. Okay, Mr. Osam said dialect refers to what parts of speech, while language refers to whole. Okay, so how can you differentiate between dialect and language? Okay, according to linguistic concepts, the concept of the difference between language and dialect is something that is not clear for the linguists themselves. They discuss different ideas, and they disagree about each other about the concept of what is language and what is dialect. But some said that, for example, we said that the variety A and the variety B, we call them A and B are two languages if they are different in phonology, in morphology, and also in syntax. And we call dialect A and dialect B, two varieties that have different in phonology, morphology, and syntax. But what is difference between language and dialect is that in different dialects, we have mutual perception. But in two languages, we don't have mutual perception. Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, so did you get? This is one of the definition of between the distinction between language and dialect. Both languages and dialects different in phonology, in morphology, and in syntax. But we call the variety A and variety B are two dialects if there is mutual perception. But if there is no mutual perception, we call these two variety language. For example, between Persian and Arabic, there is no mutual perception. So we call them two languages, two different languages. But we talk about dialect. Okay, for example, in Iraq, some people who live in north of Iraq speak speak differently from some people that live in south of Iraq, but they have mutual conception, mutual perception. This mutual perception, according to this mutual perception, we said that okay, they speak from two different dialects. Did you get? Did you get the difference between language and dialect? Okay. So this is the idea of one part of linguistics, one group of linguistics. Let me talk about what is presented, what is proposed in your book. According to what you see, I highlighted the important points. Okay, the highlighted sentences are more important than other parts. So if you want to study, pay more attention to highlighted parts, and but study all parts. Okay, study all parts of the book, but pay more attention on the highlighted parts. Okay, according to Wardoff, he said that all languages exhibit internal variation. That is, each language exists in a number of varieties and is, in one sense, the sum of those varieties. But what is variety? According to Hudson defined variety. He said that variety is a set of linguistic items with similar distribution. This definition allows us to say that all of the following are varieties. For example, Canadian English is one variety, London English is one variety, English of football commentaries is another variety. So variety is let me say a global concept that cover all the concepts of dialect, language, and accents. Okay, so this is a general concept. Variety is a general concept that cover all other concepts like language and variety, language and dialect. And also, a variety can be therefore be something greater than a single language, as well as something less even than something traditionally referred to a dialect. So because of this, we said that variety can cover a single language and also a dialect. Hudson and Ferguson proposed some definition according to definition of variety. And their definition of variety are in terms of a specific set of linguistic items or human speech patterns, which we can uniquely associate with some external factor, for example, a geographical area or social group. Okay, these are some discussion. And now, Mordov proposed some documents from different societies, for example, Japan, for example, Canada, Yugoslavia, I don't know, different countries to prove his idea about language and dialect. For many people, there can be no confusion at all about what language they speak. For example, there are Chinese. So we said that, okay, Chinese is a language. Japanese is a language. Okay, there is clear. It is, there is no confusion for us that Arabic is a language, Persian is a language, English is a language. So, for example, Chinese people speak Chinese, Japanese people speak Japanese, Iranian people speak Persian, Iraqi people speak Arabic, and so on. Just as such a strong connection between language and ethnicity may prove to be invaluable in nation building, it can also be fraught with problems when individuals and groups seek to realize some other identity. For example, to be both Chinese and American, or Canadian rather than Korean Canadian. Okay, so we call them the two ethnical backgrounds. Many Americans seem particularly reluctant to equate language with ethnicity in their own case, although they regard English as the natural language of Americans, they don't consider American to be an ethnic label. The results may be the same, only the reason differ. Okay, for example, some people who live in America, in United States, may have from different ethnical backgrounds. For example, they may be from Mexican, they may be Mexican, they may be Brazilian, but because they live in United States, we call them, they are Americans. Most speakers can give a name to whatever it is they speak. On occasion, some of these names may appear to be strange to those who take a scientific interest in languages, but we should remember that human naming practices often have a large unscientific component to them. For example, census takers in India find themselves confronted with a wide array of language names when they ask people what language or languages they speak. Names are not only ascribed by region, okay, which is what we might expect, but sometimes also by caste, region, village, and so on. Moreover, they can change from census to census as the political and social climates of the country changes. So while people do usually know what language they speak, they may not always lay claim to be fully qualified speakers of that language. They may experience difficulty in deciding whether what they speak should be called language proper or merely dialect of some language. Hogan, 1966, point to some concepts between language and dialect, and he said that language and dialects are ambiguous terms. Ordinary people use these terms quite freely in speech. For them, a dialect is almost certainly no more than a local, non-prestigious variety of real language. So, according to ordinary people, they say that dialect is sub-part of language. So, because we said that sub-part of the language, they, in their opinion, in the opinion of ordinary people, they say that dialect is a local, non-prestigious variety of a real language. So, for example, in Iraq, ordinary people of Iraq may say that the language or the variety that they speak in Baghdad is most prestigious than the variety that is spoken, for example, in Najaf or in Erbil or somewhere else. Okay? Okay, there's some question that you write or something else. Miss Zainab, you said English is a language. Yes, British is a dialect. No, it's not a dialect, it's accent. You said British accent. But also in British, they have different dialects. For example, the dialect of Birmingham, the London dialect, for example, Cambridge dialect. Okay, in every city we have different dialects. Why language and dialect are ambiguous? Okay, Miss Zainab, the reason for the ambiguousness of language and dialect is because of there is no clear definition for language and dialects. Because of this, because there is no clear and justified definition of language and dialect. Okay, no question up to now. Language is Miss Shima, according to ordinary people, okay, not according to a sociolinguist. A sociolinguist don't say that language is more prestigious than dialect. You mean different accent? No, not accent, different dialects. Accent is the difference of accent is just in the difference of phonology. For example, we said that's British accent and American accent. British accent and American accent, all the levels of these two accents are the same. For example, they are the same in morphology, they are same in syntax, they are same in, for example, semantics, but they have just difference in pronunciation, in phonology. Okay, so because of this, we said that British accent and American accent. If there are mutual conception, okay, Mr. Osam, if there would be mutual perception, we call them two dialects. But if there is no mutual conception, we call them language. Accent difference in pronunciation between variety. Yes, the accent we call two varieties are two accents if their differences will be just in pronunciation, not in the syntax, not in the morphology, not in the semantics. Okay, Baghdad is different from Basra. Okay, and Mr. Ahmad, you said, according to ordinary people, you said that Baghdad dialect is more prestigious than Basra. Yes, am I true? Because Baghdad is the capital of Iraq, and it is clear. For example, in Iran, we also said that our ordinary people said that the dialect of Tehran, the Tehrani dialect, is most prestigious than other parts. Okay, if you have no question, I continue with this class. No question? Is it clear up to now? Okay, we continue. Okay, again, also points out that the confusion Ms. Shima, you said dialect is a variety of language used by a group whose linguistic habit pattern both reflect and are determined by shared regional. Yes, yes, of course, Ms. Shima. Okay, Mr. Osam, you have a question. Ms. Rasha, you said, Mr. Osam, you said, what is mutual conception? Mutual conception, it means that you understand that person. Okay, for example, Mr. Osam, you are from Basra, okay, and you meet you meet a person from Erbil. If you speak together, your dialects are different, but there is mutual conception. It means that you understand that person. This means that you speak one dialect and that person speak another dialect. But if the person speaks Kurdish, there is no mutual conception. You cannot understand that person. So we said that you speak one language and that person speak another language because there is no mutual conception. For example, if I speak Persian, you cannot understand. So because there is no mutual conception, we said that, okay, we speak different languages. And Mr. Asha, you said social dialects factors such as occupation, place of residence, depend on a variety of factors. Yes, of course. Okay, I continue with the core with this subject. Okay, please don't write something, don't text. Okay, and if I ask you if you have got any problem or if you have got any question, then text it. Okay, because you text something and I cannot see it because of this. Okay, so I continue. Hogan points out that the confusion goes back to ancient Greeks because the ancient language, the confusion between language and dialect. Okay, Hogan said that this confusion maybe goes back to the ancient Greeks because the Greek language that we associate with ancient Greece was actually a group of distinct local varieties, for example, Ionic, Doric, and Attic, that descended by divergence from a common spoken source, with each variety having its own literary traditions and uses. For example, Ionic just used for history writing, Doric just used for choral, okay, and lyric words, and Attic just used for writing tragedy or speaking tragic forms. And later, Athenian Greeks, the Koine or common language became the norm for the spoken language as the various spoken varieties converged on the dialects of the major cultural and administrative center. Hogan points out that the Greek situation has provided the model for all later usage of the two terms with the resulting ambiguity. Language can be used to refer either to a single language norm or to a group of related norms, and dialect to refer to one of the norms. So I repeat the last sentence. Language can be used to refer either to a single linguistic norm or to a group of related norms, and dialects to refer to just one of the norms. Okay? And Hogan points out that while speakers of English have never seriously adopted patois, okay, patois was one of the dialects that used in French, as a term to be used in the description of language. They have tried to employ both language and dialect in a number of conflicting senses. Dialect or dialect is used both for local varieties of English, for example, Yorkshire dialects, and for various types of informal, lower class, and rural speech. So because of this, we call this kind of variety dialect, and we call the language that is the variety that is more prestigious, we call it language. For example, ordinary people may say the variety that is common in Baghdad, they may call it language, and the varieties that are common in other cities, for example, Basra, for example, Arbir or Najaf, they may call it dialects because they are used by lower class people or informal people. Pay attention that this is the concept of ordinary people, not sociolinguistics, okay? And as a social norm, then a dialect is a language that is excluded from polite society. So this is the concept of some speakers of English. And according to Gumpers 1982 said that socio-historical factors play a crucial role in determining boundaries. For example, Hindi and Urdu in India, Serbian and Croatian in Yugoslavia, Franti and Twi in West Africa, Bokmal and Nynorsk in Norway. These are some forms that Gumpers make as an example to make clear the concept of language and dialect. And he said that sociolinguistic factors play a crucial role in determining what is language and what is dialect. Okay, how? He can propose some examples. For example, his first example situation. He said that the Hindi-Urdu situation that Gumpers mentions is an interesting one. Hindi and Urdu are the same language, but one in which certain differences are becoming more and more magnified for political and religious reasons. Hindi is written left to right in Devanagari script, whereas Urdu is written right to left in Arabic Persian script, whereas Hindi draws on Sanskrit for its borrowings, Urdu draws on Arabic and Persian sources. Large religious and political differences make much of such small linguistic differences. The written forms of the two varieties, particularly those favored by elites, also emphasize these differences. Okay, they have become highly symbolic of the growing differences between India and Pakistan. We should note that the situation in India and Pakistan is in almost direct contrast to that which exists in China, where mutually unintelligible Chinese languages called dialects by the Chinese themselves are united through a common writing systems and tradition. Okay, I repeat this paragraph again. The situation that is in Hindi and Urdu is completely different from the situation that exists in China, because Hindi and Urdu are just one languages with two forms of writing, with two different forms of writing, because Hindi is written from left to right and Urdu is written from right to left, and it is according to Arabic script. But in China, there are different dialects, but these different dialects just have one united writing system. So because of this, that we said that the situation in China is completely different from the situation that is in Hindi and Urdu. Did you get it? Okay. So we continue with another example that Gumpers mentioned of the situation in Yugoslavia. Gumpers said that there is a reference to Yugoslavia, a country now brutally dismembered by the instruments of ethnicality, language, and religion. He said that there are different varieties in this country, in Yugoslavia, but what is important in this situation is the power. And he said that the language that is more powerful, we call it most prestigious, in contrast to the language that used by less prestigious and used by the people who are in the lower power. So the language that used by a lower power people, they call it dialect. In direct contrast to the above situation, we can observe the loyalty of a group of people need not necessarily be determined by language they speak. Although the majority of people in Alsace are speakers of a variety of German insofar as the language of their home life is concerned, their loyalty is unquestionably toward France. So this situation is completely different from the situation that we see in Yugoslavia. They look west, not to east, for national leadership, and they use French, not German, as the language of mobility and higher education. They live in German, but they don't use German. Okay, so their loyalty is to French. So all of these examples, all of these instances that we say in Yugoslavia, I don't know, French and German, and also in Urdu and Hindi. The various relationships among languages and dialects discussed above can be used to show how the concepts of power and solidarity help us understand what is happening. So, according to what we said, power requires some kind of asymmetrical relationship between entities. One has more of something that is important. Status, money, influence, these are important for that society than others. A language has more power than any of its dialects. So they call the variety that is more powerful and in higher status, they call it language, and all other varieties with lower status, with lower money and lower influence, they call it dialect. So a language has more power than any of its dialects. It is the powerful dialect, but it has become so because of non-linguistic factors. Standard English and Parisian French are good examples. Solidarity, on the other hand, is a feeling of equality that people have with one another. They have a common interest around which they will bond. A feeling of solidarity can lead people to preserve a local dialect or an endangered language to resist power or to insist on independence. For example, in Iran, okay? In Iran, we have many languages. We have Baluchi language, Kurdish, Arabic, I don't know, Lori. We have different languages. But what the feeling of solidarity leads people of Iran to speak Persian, okay? To speak Persian. This is the feeling of solidarity. Or in Iraq, there are many languages. For example, maybe Kurdish, maybe Lori, maybe, I don't know, Armani, maybe Arabic. But the feeling of solidarity leads people to speak Arabic, okay? This is the solidarity feeling. It accounts for the persistence of local dialects, the modernization of Hebrew, and separation of Serbo-Croatian into Serbian and Croatian. These are some examples of the feeling of solidarity. Because of this feeling of solidarity, Hebrew is modernized, okay, and become alive in Israel. The language dialect situation along the border between Netherlands and Germany is an interesting example. Historically, there was a continuum of dialects of one language, but the two that eventually became standardized as the language of Netherlands and Germany, Standard Dutch and Standard German, are not mutually intelligible. It means that speaker of one cannot understand a speaker of another. So mutually conception or mutually intelligible are the factor to differentiate between dialect from language. In the border area, speakers of the local varieties of Dutch and German still exist within that dialect continuum and remain largely intelligible to one another, yet the people on one side of the border say they speak a variety of Dutch, and those on the other side say they speak a variety of German. They speak, they have mutually intelligible, but they said that we speak a variety of different languages. Okay, Ms. Zainab, you said so. Dialects in general impact by religion, social factors, and geographic. Yes, of course, of course. All of these factors involve in choosing what is dialect, of course. Ms. Zainab, religion is not the factor. Religion is not the factor, is not an influential factor, okay? But geographic and power. What is more important is power. But okay, we can say somehow religion, yes, maybe the religion of some people may be, for example, less prestigious. Okay, so they said that because they have a less prestigious religion, so their language is also less prestigious. Yes, of course, yes, religion is also a factor. Ms. Zainab, thank you. Okay, I think it's enough for today. If you have got any question, okay, we continue up to page 31. Okay, we finish from now and we will continue from this part. Gumpers has suggested we start from we start next session. If you have got any problem or question, you can ask. Yes, some of you said mutually intelligible as the distances become greater. Of course, this is the factor. Of course. Yes, Miss Shima, your next lesson is the same chapter. The continue of from page 31. Okay. Okay? Please raise your hand, Mr. Ostam. Raise your hand that I can activate your microphone. Mr. Ostam, if you want to speak, please raise your hand that I can find you. Your microphone is active. You yourself make your microphone off. Your microphone is active. You yourself make your microphone inactive.
Okay, sorry,
Yes.
ma'am, sorry. Okay, now can I ask you?
Yes, of course.
Can I now do here?
Yes, of course. You want to say something? Yes, of course, please.
Okay, okay, Doctor. Just I want to ask you about just a comment about what you said about, for example, the Arabic language. I don't understand you whenever you said that. Okay, okay, just wait a minute.
I hear you.
So whenever you said, for example, in Iraq, here, Baghdad, it can be as, I don't know what you call it, as procedural language, and
Yes.
other languages, for example, in Najaf and Basra, low standard, or because of money, because of finance. I don't know what you mean by that. So if you regarded that in Baghdad is the official language, so what about the other languages in Najaf and Basra? They are dialects or they are languages, despite that there are no
Okay.
borders, there are no barriers between them, there is no difference in social status here. So I don't know,
Okay, if
there's a confusion between
Mr.
how you
Osam,
choose
wait a
a
minute.
dialect and a language. For example, if you go forward to, for example, to China. If you go to China here, you said that there are so many accents here. Oh, so sorry. Sorry.
No, languages. They have
Okay,
different
there's
languages
another
in
part
China.
I will ask you later on. Okay, I'm waiting your comment.
Okay, Mr. Osam, for example, in
Okay, doctor, I'm
all the
waiting you.
people in Iraq try to use the dialect that is common in Baghdad. I mean, true. For example, in Iran, all the people from different parts for example, in Khuzestan, in Khorasan, that is used in Tehran. Because Tehrani dialect is most prestigious than Khorasani dialect. Okay? Of course, Khorasani dialect is different from Tehrani dialect. But because Tehran is the capital and the status of Tehran is higher, so ordinary people said that the variety that is common in Tehran is most prestigious than the variety that is common in other parts. The situation is the same in Britain. The accent, or let me say the variety that is in London, that's used in London, is most prestigious than the variety that is used, for example, in Birmingham or in Cambridge. Why? Because London has the higher status. Okay? Don't forget, Mr. Ostan, what we say most prestigious. Mr. Ostan, let me. What we say most prestigious, it is according to ordinary people, not from the viewpoint of sociolinguistics. According to a linguist or sociolinguist, all varieties are the same. There is no prestigious language. No languages are more prestigious than another language. This is the viewpoint of a sociolinguist. Did you get?
So as I come, okay, just I summarize all your ideas by one word. So we can say solidarity, and that's all.
Yes, of course. Solidarity said that we have one language in a community. So solidarity leads us to have one language in Iran, that is Persian. So all the other languages from Kurdish, for example, Kurdish and Arabic, used in lower varieties and lower situations. Did you get?
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Now
okay,
let's
and
from
other
page
questions?
31. So
yes, next session, that would be on next Saturday, we will speak from the page 31 up to the end of this chapter. Please preview, okay? Please preview what we want to talk. Okay, Mr. Joseph, you said, why do some dialects have more prestige than others? Okay, because this is because of the status of that dialect. For example, the status of Tehran in Iran is more prestigious than the status of Khuzestan or Khorasan. The same is in Iraq. The status of Baghdad, because Baghdad is the capital of Iraq. So the status is higher and the financial situation is higher than other parts of Iraq. So because of this, ordinary people said that the variety that is in Baghdad is most prestigious than the other dialects that, for example, exist in, I don't know, Basra or Najaf or other areas. Did you get?
okay, doctor. Okay, doctor, but if it is more prestigious and because it is the higher rank, we cannot consider it as a language. We cannot consider it as a language.
Okay, there are dialects.
Okay, so if it is a dialect, okay, but if it is a language, because of it is the higher rank of the capital, we cannot consider like the higher rank dialect as a language. We cannot consider it as a dialect.
No, right? Don't forget that one language may have different dialects. For example, Arabic in Iraqi Arabic have different dialects. For example, the dialect of Basra is different from the dialect of Baghdad. Okay, is it clear? Or the dialect in Iran, the dialect of Tehran is different from the dialect of Khorasan. But there are mutual conception. They are mutual intelligible. But language is something different,
Doctor,
because there is no mutual conception. Yes.
Doctor, I am focusing on one point. Sorry, I'm really sorry for my focusing point here. So you said that the capital, for example, of Iran, or the capital of Iraq, let me talk about a good example. Here the capital of Iraq is Baghdad. It's regarded as a higher standard, as a capital. So what is the idea here? So if it is the capital, okay. So what is really the relation between the dialect of the capital with the dialect of Basra, for example? What is the relationship between them?
Okay,
I
there is
see
no.
there is no relation. All of them the same. That are
Of
all are
course, of course,
dialect.
of
Just
course.
they are
This is a
dialects, no
viewpoint
more.
of a
They
sociolinguist.
are under the solidarity
Of course, they are the
of
same,
Arabic.
but
Sorry.
ordinary people, okay,
Okay, I'm with
ordinary
you.
people. I
Listening.
just talk about ordinary people, not the scholarly people, not you yourself that are the linguist or you are educated. I just talk about ordinary people. This
Okay,
is the
doctor.
viewpoint of ordinary people, okay? But of course, our dialects are the same. I, Miss Shimo, I try to try to announce your exam tomorrow. I will try. But I expect more, much more than you. Okay, all of you. Okay, so that's enough for today. If you have got any, if you don't have any question, we can end this session. No question? I'm sure you will do better. I'm sure. Yes, of course. You are very serious people, and I'm sure that you will try your best in this semester. I'm sure. Yes, of course. So thank you very much for attending this class. I will see you next Saturday. Good evening. Have a good time. Goodbye.